What truly matters is recognizing that the self you've been trying to fix, improve, and protect may not be what you actually are. As long as you identify as a separate individual struggling to control life, suffering continues to regenerate. When that identity is questioned and seen clearly, the foundation of those problems dissolves. There is a direct recognition available. You are the awareness in which every thought, emotion, and experience appears. In that recognition, the search relaxes, the mental struggle quiets, and life moves with a natural sense of ease. Your problems multiply the more you try to solve them. Each solution you implement creates new complications, and you've been caught in this cycle since you first learned to think your way through life. Most people spend their entire existence managing the surface of experience. They work on relationships, career advancement, financial security, health optimization, personal development. All of this happens while missing the one thing that would actually transform everything. Look at the problems that consume your mental energy. Maybe it's loneliness. Maybe it's chronic worry about the future. Maybe it's feeling inadequate compared to others. Maybe it's the sense that something essential is missing from your life. Every single one of these problems requires a particular assumption to exist. They all assume there's a separate individual who can be lonely, who should worry, who falls short, who lacks something vital. Remove that assumption, and the problems don't get solved, they simply dissolve. But you can't remove the assumption through more thinking. The thinking mind created the assumption in the first place. You're trying to use the problem-creating mechanism to eliminate what it created. This is why all spiritual traditions point toward awakening. Buddha refers to waking from delusion. Christ speaks about staying awake in parables. The Vedic texts describe seeing through Maya. Different languages pointing to the same recognition. Awakening means discovering what you are underneath the mental construct of being a person navigating through time. When this recognition happens, life continues, but the fundamental suffering that colored everything drops away. There are two kinds of importance operating in human life. Relative importance applies to the circumstances of your personal existence. Your health, your relationships, your financial situation, these things matter within the framework of being someone living a life. Then there's absolute importance. What has absolute importance? Whether you recognize what you actually are beyond the story of being a limited person. This recognition matters absolutely because it's the only thing that ends the fundamental suffering that no external circumstance can resolve. I should mention that I've been moving the expanded parts of these studies to Patreon. It's where I can be much more consistent and share deeper material that doesn't really fit the format here on YouTube. If you want to follow that, the link is in the pinned comment. When people first hear this, they often resist. They think awakening sounds impractical or irrelevant to real-life concerns. But this resistance comes from the very mechanism that creates suffering. The mind that says, "I'm too busy for presence," is the same mind generating your problems. You believe you don't have time to be present, yet you spend hours lost in mental scenarios about things that never happen. You consider spiritual inquiry impractical while engaging daily in the deeply impractical activity of worrying about the future and regretting the past. The separate self that you take yourself to be survives by keeping your attention on problems that require its existence. It needs you engaged in the project of becoming better, achieving more, finally arriving at the place where you can be at peace. But what if peace was never something to arrive at? What if you've been looking in the wrong direction entirely? Most people live in a state of continuous wish to be elsewhere. They're physically present but mentally rejecting the current moment. The mind narrates, "This situation shouldn't be like this, something needs to change, I need to get away from here, things should be different." This rejection of what is creates a baseline suffering that people accept as normal. They think this is just how life feels. But this suffering comes entirely from resisting the present moment, not from the content of the present moment itself. In any situation you encounter, one factor determines the quality of your experience more than any other. What is your state of consciousness right now? Are you present or lost in mental stories? Are you aware of awareness or identified with thoughts? Are you responding from stillness or reacting from programmed patterns? The situation itself, pleasant or unpleasant, easy or difficult, matters far less than how you meet it. Two people can face identical circumstances with completely different experiences based solely on their state of consciousness. Awakening reveals that you've been seeking fulfillment in relationships, achievements, experiences, and possessions. Each time you get what you want, satisfaction lasts briefly before you need something else. This happens because you're trying to use temporary things to satisfy something that's already eternally fulfilled, your true nature as awareness itself. The process begins when you question your automatic assumptions about who you are. Instead of believing every thought that arises, you observe thinking itself. Instead of being carried away by emotions, you notice that emotions are experiences appearing within you, temporary weather patterns rather than definitions of your identity. Self-inquiry provides the most direct path. You ask, "Who am I?" but you don't answer with concepts. You follow the sense of "I" back to its source. When a thought appears, you ask, "To whom does this thought come?" The natural answer is, "To me." Then you inquire further, "What is this me? What is this I?" You don't analyze or philosophize. You simply maintain attention on the sense of I-ness itself, the felt sense of being that's present underneath all experience. Your mind has been trained to solve problems through thinking. But the fundamental problem, believing you're a separate, limited self, cannot be solved by thought. It can only be seen through. Thinking creates the sense of separation in the first place. Every thought assumes a thinker. Every emotion assumes someone feeling. Every perception assumes a perceiver. But when you look directly for this assumed entity, you can't actually find it. What you find instead is spacious awareness within which all experiences appear and disappear. The mind will resist this inquiry. Its entire function depends on maintaining the illusion of separation. It will generate spiritual concepts, philosophical questions, and endless theories to avoid the simple recognition of what you are. But you don't need to understand awakening intellectually. You need to see it directly in your own experience. Here's something that challenges most people's worldview: everything happening in your life unfolds according to forces far beyond personal control. Your body, your circumstances, your personality traits, your reactions, all of this was set in motion long before you took birth. You didn't choose your genetics, your family, your basic temperament, or the era you were born into. A power greater than personal will brought you into existence and continue sustaining you. Your heart beats without conscious instruction. Your cells regenerate automatically. Your food digests without your intervention. Millions of complex processes happen without any input from thinking. Yet somehow you believe your happiness depends on personal effort to control and manipulate circumstances. As long as you identify with being a person, you remain subject to the flow of cause and effect playing out through this body-mind. But when you realize you are awareness itself, the whole framework becomes irrelevant. Karma, destiny, reincarnation, all these concepts apply only to the imaginary separate self. When that identification dissolves, everything related to it dissolves as well. Look around right now. Plants grow without trying, planets orbit in perfect harmony, your body maintains temperature, fights infections, repairs injuries automatically. The entire universe operates through intelligence far beyond human comprehension. This same power takes care of you. Your only job involves getting out of the way by surrendering the illusion that you control anything. When you see through the illusion of separation, personal suffering ends. This doesn't mean pain disappears. The body may still experience discomfort. Emotions may still arise. But suffering, the mental story about why these experiences are wrong and need to change, dissolves completely. You stop taking everything personally because you realize there is no person in the way you previously imagined. Someone criticizes you, and instead of defending an imaginary self-image, you simply hear words arising in awareness. You lose money, and instead of identifying with fear, you observe anxiety appearing and disappearing like weather passing through open sky. Life continues, but the desperate quality drops away. You respond to situations naturally without constant internal commentary about how things should be different. What you truly are cannot be described because it exists before language, before concepts, before the division into subject and object. You are the awareness that knows you are aware. You are the stillness in which all movement appears. You are the silence from which all sound emerges and to which it returns. This recognition is profoundly practical because it ends the exhausting search for fulfillment in temporary experiences. You stop believing you need to become someone else or achieve something more to be complete. You recognize completion as your natural state, temporarily obscured by identification with thoughts and sensations but never actually lost. The search ends when there's nothing left to search for. What you were looking for was never missing. As this understanding deepens, your relationship to life transforms. You no longer feel caught in circumstances because you know yourself as the space within which all circumstances appear. You stop trying to control outcomes because you trust the intelligence moving everything. You respond to what needs attention without the anxiety of thinking you have to figure everything out. People begin noticing something different about your presence. You're no longer trying to impress anyone or defend any position. You're not carrying the weight of a personal agenda. There's a natural ease that others find compelling without understanding why. This is why awakening holds absolute importance. Your fundamental well-being no longer depends on external circumstances. You found the source of lasting fulfillment, and it was never anywhere other than where you are right now. When someone says, "I'm exhausted with the ego, I can't handle it anymore, I don't want to wait years," this comes from spiritual urgency. This urgency signals that awakening is already happening. The inability to tolerate mental games anymore means consciousness is calling you home. The grace that brings you to this point of spiritual desperation is the same grace revealing what you've always been. Your suffering has served its purpose, it has made continuing the old way impossible. The deepest inquiry you can make, can the perceiver be perceived? Everything you experience, thoughts, emotions, sensations, memories, hopes, fears, appears to a perceiver. This perceiver witnesses the coming and going of all experience. When a thought appears, something knows it's there. When it disappears, something knows it's gone. But what about the perceiver itself? Can this witnessing awareness be witnessed by something else? The mind tries to perceive the perceiver, to make consciousness into another object of experience. But consciousness is the space within which all things appear. Whatever is witnessing your experience right now cannot be the experience itself, because experiences come and go while the witness remains. Something is always here to register that experiences have changed. That something is what you actually are. The person perceives through filters of memory, preference, fear, and desire. The person's perception is always colored by the story of me and my life. But underlying this personal perceiving is impersonal awareness that doesn't have opinions about what it perceives. It doesn't prefer happiness over sadness or success over failure. It simply receives all experience equally. When you recognize yourself as this impersonal awareness rather than as the person, everything shifts. The person continues functioning, you still have preferences, still respond to situations, but the desperate quality disappears because there's no longer a desperate someone at the center. Most spiritual paths create confusion by suggesting that through practice, effort, and time, you can become what you already are. They turn recognition into achievement, being into becoming. But you cannot practice your way into awareness. You cannot meditate your way into consciousness. This is because awareness is what's already aware of all practicing. Consciousness is what's conscious of all meditation. Your true nature is what knows all thinking. The mind creates a subtle trap around spiritual effort. It says, if I try harder, meditate longer, or follow teachings more precisely, I'll eventually become enlightened. But this very effort reinforces the illusion that you're not already what you seek. Every attempt to become aware assumes you're currently unaware. Every effort to find peace assumes you're currently without peace. Every practice to realize your true nature assumes you're currently false. Consider your own experience. Thoughts change constantly, emotions fluctuate, sensations shift as your body moves through different positions and environments. But what about the awareness that knows all these changes? Has that awareness itself changed? When you were 5 years old, you had different thoughts, different concerns, different experiences. Your entire life situation was different. But wasn't the same awareness that's aware right now also aware then? This awareness is the constant factor in all your changing experience. It's what's been continuously present through every phase of your life, every mood, every circumstance. It's closer to you than your thoughts, more intimate than your emotions, more fundamental than your body. This awareness is what you are. Everything else, personality, history, preferences, problems, appears within this awareness like clouds in open sky. When you truly see that you are awareness itself, something profound shifts. You stop trying to fix or improve the person because you realize the person is just another appearance within what you are. This doesn't make you detached. It makes you free to respond naturally without the burden of thinking your essential well-being depends on any outcome. As identification with the separate self weakens, natural lightness emerges. You realize you don't have to be somebody special. You don't need to maintain an image or defend a position. You don't have to prove your worth or justify your existence. Being nobody in particular is actually freedom. When you stop trying to be someone, you can simply be what you are, unlimited awareness appearing temporarily as a human form. Even as these recognitions dawn, a familiar voice often appears, but is this real? Am I just imagining this? How do I know I'm actually awake? This doubting voice is part of the mind's attempt to maintain the illusion of separation. It wants to turn awakening into another mental concept that can be possessed, lost, or compared. Notice that the awareness of this doubt is separate from the doubt itself. The space within which uncertainty appears is not itself uncertain. The consciousness that knows the questioning mind is not itself questioning. The mind expects awakening to be complex, dramatic, or difficult to understand. It's prepared for elaborate philosophies, special experiences, or years of gradual development. But the truth is shockingly simple: you are awareness. Every word about awakening ultimately points beyond words. Every concept about consciousness directs you toward what exists before concepts. The purpose of spiritual communication is to exhaust the mind's need for more concepts until it surrenders into the silence from which all concepts emerge. When you truly understand what's being pointed to, you realize these words are your own deepest knowing speaking to itself. The recognition happens as remembering what you never actually forgot. Perhaps the most liberating recognition: you don't need to become anything. Becoming is the domain of the separate self. What you truly are never becomes, it simply is. Actions arise naturally from wholeness. But the desperate quality of trying to become someone better dissolves because there's no longer anyone who needs improvement. What emerges when seeking ends is your natural condition, temporarily obscured by identification with thoughts and emotions. You don't have to work to be aware, awareness is effortless. You don't have to try to be present, presence is your natural state. The effort was in the seeking. The struggle was in trying to become. Right now, in this moment, you can stop the search. You can stop trying to become present and simply notice that presence is already here. You can stop seeking awareness and recognize that you couldn't be aware of seeking unless you already were awareness. The miracle is in recognizing the extraordinary nature of ordinary awareness. You remain as human as ever, but the suffering that came from believing you were only human dissolves. You engage with life fully, but without the desperation that came from thinking your essential well-being was at stake. For those of you looking for more frequent updates and the exclusive research that goes into these videos, that's all happening over on Patreon now. Everything is in the pinned comment below. You are what is. There is nothing else to find, nothing else to become, nothing else to understand. This is awakening, this is your life, this is what you've always been. The only difference now is that you know.